Hello, and welcome to the second video blog in our series, Remarkable Remedies. This explores our collections here at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. I'm Paul Bennett, I'm Chief Exec at the RPS, and with me, I'm delighted to have Catherine Walker, our Museum Officer here at the RPS. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. You too, I hope?
Yes, good, thank you.
Excellent. In the last video blog that I think you did with Robbie, you looked at the object that most caught your eye. What objects from the museum are we going to look at in this vlog? And is there anything in there that you think might put me off my lunch?
Well, when you work with medical collections, you develop a strong stomach. So I hope there's nothing too disturbing in this vlog. As you know, I've been getting to know the collection of we have around 45,000 objects, but because the building has been closed due to COVID-19, I have been drawn to those objects that look at infectious diseases, plagues and pandemics. So that's what I'm going to have a look at today.
That's really interesting. So what have been the different approaches in your view then throughout history to treating infectious diseases, and what do we have in the collection, do you think, that really best reflects this?
Well, the history of medicine is full of cases of infectious diseases and plagues, from the plague of Athens in 430 BC all the way through to today, COVID-19. So exploring the different approaches to these diseases is particularly poignant to me as we try to figure out our way through this current pandemic. One of the most significant and probably recognisable epidemics to affect the UK was the Plague of London, which took place in 1665 to 1666. It was the last major epidemic of the bubonic plague in the UK, and it was transmitted through the bite of infected fleas. In the museum collection, if I show you here, we have a bill of mortality. Now, handbills like this would have been pinned up in public places, and they detail the number of deaths in that particular area. As the deaths in the bills increased, then people could tell that the disease was spreading to that area, and they would adjust their behaviours, maybe not go out as much. Unfortunately, though, after 2 years, the plague had killed around 20% of London's population.
That's an amazing figure, and that bill of mortality clearly demonstrates what a sombre period it was. So I guess this was a sort of early kind of tracking system then?
Yeah, exactly.
So what about the pharmacist's role in the pandemic?
Well, we have a really interesting caricature that I'll bring up here that shows the pressure that pharmacists were under in pandemics and epidemics. So 10 years before the founding of the RPS, in 1831, the first cases of a new cholera epidemic broke out in Sunderland. Residents of the UK had been witnessing cholera spread throughout Europe and then throughout the UK. And so you can understand they were very anxious. This print highlights that anxiety and how the pharmacist played a role in that. Frightened customers crowd around the pharmacist seeking potential remedies to get ahead of the infection. It shows that pharmacists have always played an important part on the front line of epidemics and pandemics.
And of course, there's quite a lot in what you've just said that really echoes with the current situation with COVID-19. I find that really interesting. The infectious diseases that we've been talking about so far were bacterial diseases, of course, and these can now be treated with antibiotics. Do we have anything that relates to the discovery or the production of antibiotics in the museum?
Yeah, so the discovery of penicillin took place in the 1920s, and it created a route towards combating many of history's infectious diseases. Penicillin became widely available in the 1940s, and we have a range of objects in the collection that explore the different forms antibiotics take, as well as the issues surrounding antibiotics, like antibiotic resistance. This photo, though, is one of my favourites in the collection, and it's from 1943, and it shows a scientist examining a fully grown penicillin mould. Antibiotics now treat a number of bacterial infections, like cholera and the bubonic plague, and they prevent them from reaching those kind of epidemic and pandemic proportions.
I think it's really interesting, Catherine, isn't it, to think about the limitations of medicines as well at the same time as how successful they can be. For a lot of the objects that you've been talking about, there wasn't really the general understanding of drugs and treatment that we clearly do have today. Is this something you could talk a little bit more about?
If we stay on that kind of antibiotic bacterial infection kind of track, not all infectious diseases were bacterial and could be treated with antibiotics. A lot of the infectious diseases we see today are viral, and so antibiotics don't have an effect on those. So things like SARS and the different strains of influenza are viral infections, as well as COVID-19, of course. Viral diseases are much harder to treat, and the flu has been the cause of a number of history's pandemics. In 1889, an outbreak of influenza spread from Russia and travelled again through to the UK. There was a desire for miracle cures at that time as well, and those making quack cures were really keen to take advantage of the situation. This leads me to probably my favourite object in the collection, and it's this bottle here of Barrett's Mandrake Embrocation. And it's probably the most literal example we have in the collection of a quack cure. You can see on the bottle we have Barrett himself, half man, half duck, as a pun on the word mandrake. The remedy was said to cure headaches from any cause instantly, as well as, now I'm going to read the list, speciality for sprains, bruises, overstraining of the muscles, cramp, rheumatism, sciatica, lumbago, gout, neuralgia, chilblains, mumps, bronchitis, fits, etc. So after the outbreak of influenza, flu was just added to the end of that list, and it was just added to the label, and they carried on. To feel the effects of this medicine, you could rub a small amount on your aching muscles, or you could pour some on an egg-sized sponge and inhale it through the mouth. Unfortunately, this remedy didn't cure the flu or any of the other ailments listed on the bottle.
It would be really interesting, I think, to see whatever the licensing application might look like today for such a product as that, trying to get to market. Astounding. Something that we are very aware of course, with the current COVID-19 pandemic is a search for a vaccine. Do we have any vaccines in the collection at the RPS?
Yes, we do. And as you know, many of our pharmacists will be familiar with administering flu vaccines at the moment, but the RPS holds a very rare example of an early flu vaccine. This one was developed before 1921, so around the time of the 1918 flu pandemic, and it was developed by the Royal Army Medical College. It was developed by using the lung scrapings of infected patients. It wasn't actually until the 1940s that a flu vaccine became really widely available to the public. And obviously, since then, different vaccines have been developed for the different strains of flu throughout the 20th and the 21st centuries, which guard against those different strains.
So I suppose it's not too surprising then that the RPS Museum has a significant collection relating to the fight against infectious diseases.
No, and one of the things that I find most enjoyable about medical collections in general and the RPS collection specifically is that it can help us learn lessons from our past and also kind of give us insight into the present, especially at this time of kind of uncertainty.
Absolutely. Catherine, many thanks again for walking us through what is a really interesting area. And I hope that our viewers have really enjoyed it as much as I have. I'm really looking forward to the next one now in our Remarkable Remedies series. And I do hope that everybody's able to join us again very soon.